What's up? I'm B, and whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, I hope you are having an amazing day. Today, we are reacting to another video from the Zelf on the Shelf and Bethany and Dave BEAL collaboration. Zelf on the Shelf recently posted their second video in this series, and it is called Girl Defined Bethany on Navigating a Mixed Faith Marriage, parentheses, part 2. And parentheses, I'm not sure how many parts this collab is going to be. I would assume part or 2 parts. That seems to be pretty typical. That's kind of my expectation, is that this is going to be the last collaboration we have between the 4 of them for now, but we'll see what happens. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I would definitely recommend going back and checking that out first, and then coming to watch part 2, although it might not be necessary because I can see that they're in different outfits, and so I am not sure if watching part 1 will be like imperative to your understanding of what they're discussing in part 2, but I did do a reaction to part 1, so like feel free, go check that one out first and then come back and we'll talk about part 2 together. But I don't really have anything to say in the intro to this, like any other background information that I feel is important to give, or like any external info for you, other than Sam from Zelf on the Shelf did leave a comment on part 1. So I do want to go ahead and read that to you, as well as my response, just because she did leave a comment. She had some opinions on some of the things that I said, and so I feel like it's only fair if you watched that video and you didn't see her comment to hear her response, because I did give them a little bit of criticism in the beginning of my video. There were just some things I had some opinions on as a human, and so I shared my opinion. Some people agreed with me, and some people very much did not. And it was great to see the kind of exchange of ideas, because even though there were plenty of people who did not agree with some of the criticism that I gave, I feel like the majority, like pretty much everything I saw, 99.999% of the conversations that I saw about it were respectful, which is something that I appreciate so much. Like, it's so, I don't know. I don't know the word to describe it, but seeing people be able to disagree in a way that is not like degrading or meant to be hurtful to somebody else. It's just like, well, no, I have this opinion and this is how I feel about it, and so I'm going to share it. Like, just seeing that happen, I think is super valuable, to be able to like disagree respectfully, and then also to know that they're like, the people who watch my channel, you guys, you who are here, are the kinds of people who are capable of disagreeing respectfully. It's just like, I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad that like, those are the kinds of people who watch my channel, is people who can say, I'm not with you on this one. Like, I disagree with you. Here's why. And again, it's not doing it in a way that is meant to like degrade anybody or to tear somebody down. It's just like, I think you're wrong, and here's my reasoning. So anyway, I very much appreciate that. I find that to be very cool, and I do not take that for granted. But like I said, I want to share what Sam left on that video. So this is the comment that Sam left on my video. This felt like a pretty bad faith interpretation of us, though you're obviously free to dislike the collab and us, but for what it's worth, Costa Rica trip is hella expensive. Yep, we're not pretending otherwise. Nobody is being coerced into going, and we have a close friend who's done 4 trips with Trova Trips, so we trust them. We didn't earn enough last year to set aside 30% for taxes because it was our first full-time year, and we were just barely covering our bills. Sorry, and then the 2 hands up, like, shrug emoji. And then it says, there's no lack of transparency in admitting that to people who value our content and want to help us keep making it. Thankfully, our financial situation has already become more stable in year 2, and we're more well-versed now. Saying stuff like, get another job, just feels mean-spirited. It's hard trying to be financially stable in our world, and we're not business experts, with the upside down smiley face emoji. I'm not sure why me listing my personal Venmo is a problem. We need a Zelf one, sure, but in terms of the people donating, it's the same experience. We've never claimed to use donations for anything specific, simply to live and occasionally buy equipment. We're not a nonprofit, and we don't want to be. I understand people have different ideas about the best way to engage with bigoted ideas, but as far as I'm aware, our approach is appropriately research-informed. Change doesn't always happen as fast as we want, and there's never a guarantee that engaging will produce the results we want. But as someone who was genuinely brainwashed by religion, I moved continents at 18 to go to a cult university. I know how valuable grace is when it comes to unlearning harmful ideas. We don't expect anyone to engage who isn't safe to do so, and we don't fault anyone for not liking Bethany. Girl Defined is a much bigger deal than us, and there's no way in hell our overwhelmingly queer audience is going to be converted to Bethany's worldview by watching this collab. Our whole channel is dedicated to dismantling bad ideas like that. Sam, with the peace sign emoji. Then I responded and said, thanks for taking the time to watch and sharing your thoughts. I don't see us agreeing on this, but I don't believe my initial interpretation of you was made in bad faith. I looked at your channel and had a response to what I saw. I wasn't going out of my way to form an opinion based on something that wasn't there. It was just, hey, I saw these things that I felt negatively about and I'm sharing them in the interest of transparency. But if people choose to donate, that's fine, and I'm going into the video as open-minded as I can. With your other points regarding Costa Rica, taxes, income, etc., you're obviously free to ask your audience for donations. If people choose to donate, that's great, and my opinions remain the same as what I already expressed in the video. The only thing I want to add more color to from my perspective is, quote, we're not a nonprofit and we don't want to be, end quote. Not sure where that came from, but I don't think I implied that you were. It's a bit confusing, though, to claim to be a startup, but then to not have public-facing finances reflect the business and instead have donations go to your personal account. I don't know how you all allocate your money and donations behind the scenes, and it's none of my business, but that's why it threw me off. Lastly, I think giving Bethany a safe space to explore her ideas is great, and I don't have a problem with anyone being there for her as support or a sounding board because I am sure the last few months have been a whole new experience for her. I think it is a beautiful thing to be there for someone when their world is rocked like that, even if you disagree with a lot of their views. I guess I just wonder what the goal was in doing the collab and having this conversation so publicly when this journey is still something she's at the beginning of. Since you were a member of the LDS Church, I figure you can probably relate to the intense desire for approval that so many people in high control situations struggle with. I wonder if Bethany was truly honest about certain feelings she has, or if she tailored her responses to avoid conflict, not only with you two, but with also keeping her audience and yours in mind. I also wonder what impact that had on how she's evaluating her publicly held beliefs that are incredibly hurtful, like the anti-trans Instagram post from only 3 days ago. Clearly, she agreed to do the collaboration and she can make her own decisions, but honestly, watching it just left me with a lot of questions and conflicting feelings. I am interested to see what is covered in part 2, and if there's any additional context you feel is important for me or my audience to know, and you feel like sharing, I'd be happy to include it. Oh, and then this is good because Sam did respond to that, but the initial comment that she left, I think it was just the first paragraph, because when I read it, I was like, okay, I told you, like, I don't need to know where your money's going. Like, I don't need to know what you're doing with the donations. It's like, really, it is none of my business. And the first paragraph said, donations go to our regular bills, rent, groceries, everything everyone has to pay for to live. And occasionally the odd subpar mic, as evidenced by this collab. And it's like the smiley face with like the sweat drop. And it says, I don't feel any need for our audience to get a breakdown of our spending habits. Haha, we're both pretty frugal, but regardless, we're not making any claims. It's more in the realm of nonprofits to share that kind of stuff. I feel zero need to. Nobody is under any obligation to donate. And so I'm pretty sure that was the only thing that she had left in her initial response. And I was like, like I said before I read it, I don't need to know where your money's going. It was just like, you're saying that you're a startup and you're relying on donations, and like this is for, like, a startup to me implies like we're a business, like we are taking this the professional route. Legally, we're gonna be like an LLC. We are going to get this down like a business track as opposed to a hobby track. And so for me, I'm like, okay, then get this off on the shelf. Get the pen pal, the PayPal, the Venmo, whatever it is, so that way when you're publicly like saying, here's how you can donate, here's how you can support the channel, it's all congruent. But I realized I didn't have a screenshot from her first response, and so I went to go back and get it, and she did add more. And I think that this is, I haven't read it all the way through yet, I did just skim it, but I was like, okay, this is probably going to be some good info for us to have as we go into part 2. The rest of the comment says, I think you're referring to our jokes about being a scrappy startup, but we never claimed to be anything but two creators trying their best to earn a living doing what we care about and enjoy. I understand having conflicting feelings and questions totally. Like I said, change can be slow and there are no guarantees. I don't think it's our job to shame anyone, and there's no world where you can force people to change their beliefs. You just have to love them where they're at and share your differing views when there is space to. Part 2 is largely about Dave and Bethany navigating a mixed faith marriage, which is an interesting topic for our audience, as we have a lot of ex-Mormons in that situation. It's complex and painful. That's a big part of why our audience wanted us to go to Texas and interview them, because they know the struggle and how beneficial it is to have friends who have navigated it. I think we platformed our ideas to Bethany's audience far more than the other way around. I was impressed with her asking Tanner to share what he thinks her audience could benefit from hearing. That's so huge given the background she came from. I don't know what will happen moving forward, but I don't regret the collab or the way we loved them both. Just wish we were better at technology. Haha, I feel bad that people had to endure our audio/video quality. And then it's the monkey emoji with his hands over his face. And she closes out by saying, also, sorry, I'm editing this comment days later, but I also appreciate your respectful, honest response. I can see how we're all looking at things from different angles and forming opinions accordingly. I think the way making money on the internet is so easily tied to being a scammer or dishonest has come into play here in ways that don't feel fair to me. We've been donation run for about 8 years because we were some of the first ex-Mormon YouTubers, and people were hungry for content like that. We've always been upfront about stuff and have turned down money-making opportunities that don't feel ethical to us. We're not naturally geared towards business, as you pointed out, LOL, but I don't think that makes us morally questionable here. I'm going to have to sit with that comment and think about if there's anything I feel is necessary to add to the conversation in response to that. Like I said, reading that to you was the first time that I had read the rest of what Sam added, because she did go back and add some more things a few days later. Anyway, I do have opinions on some of the things specifically that Sam said in that comment, but frankly, I'm not interested in a back and forth. I don't have a problem with people making money online, and if they want to ask for donations, like, they can ask for the donations. That's fine. I can have my opinion on it, but still be like, at the end of the day, do whatever you want to do. Like, you're not hurting somebody by asking for donations. If you were doing something harmful, I might be interested in having like a back and forth on this. But in terms of this, it's just like, this is a difference in opinion. And I don't think that they're bad people for asking for donations. I just had an opinion on how they did it and how frequently they do it. And that's it. I will say that I did go back and watch Sam and Tanner's first appearance on the Mormon Stories podcast from about 8 years ago. And that's about 3 hours of content. And that was recommended to me by someone in the comment section of the first reaction video I did to them. And I feel like it was really valuable because I got to hear each of Sam and Tanner's stories, how they grew up, like what their life was like. Tanner did grow up in Mormonism. Sam converted in high school, and like just hearing their different experiences and what their thought processes were in terms of how committed they were to Mormonism, and then how kind of thoughts evolved and they ended up leaving the church. And I thought that that was pretty cool. Like it was cool to hear their story. And so I do know more about them now. Shout out to Tanner because he is from Arizona. We definitely have a lot of Mormons here, but he did say he grew up in Flagstaff, so not as many up there in the valley. Mesa Gilbert particularly. We got a lot of Mormons there, but Flagstaff not so much. So it was just interesting to hear both of their experiences, and yeah, maybe now that I have that knowledge, I can incorporate it into some of the conversations that they have with Bethany and Dave today. With all that being said, let's go ahead and do win for the week, and then we will get into the reaction. If you are new around here, a win for the week is just where you share something positive that happened to you over the past week that you would consider a win, big or small, whatever it may be. If it made you laugh, if it made you grateful, if it brought you joy, if you consider it a win, I want to hear about it and I want to celebrate with you. My win for the week is that today I got to go play mini golf indoors with my dad and my sisters. There's a place called Putt Shack in Scottsdale, and it's pretty cool. So if you're in Arizona and you need something to do inside this summer, Definitely recommend. It was fun. The holes were super interesting, and they all had like different themes, and there were like quizzes that you could do, like trivia questions on some of the holes. We played 2 different courses. So anyway, it was super fun. It was a great time, and that is my win for the week, and I cannot wait to hear yours and celebrate with you. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can leave your win in the comment section down below, and if you are listening to this on Spotify, you can leave it in the Q&A for this particular episode. Now, without any further ado, let's react to part 2.
Game over, Dave. See you on our channel in 9 months.
This is recording right now.
This is recording right.
Wait, everything's going? So nervous.
Yeah, we're going.
Yeah, and the way we edit anything could make it. Hi guys. Here we all are.
Hello.
I think this is the internet's fault.
Yeah.
Or is it our fault? What do we take responsibility?
Yeah.
Yes, I think the answer is yes.
I mean, it's happened like anything's happened. Like, I mean, actually, we kind of owe a big shout out truly to Paul and Morgan, because we probably wouldn't have made a video if they didn't come, because we weren't going to make a video. And then if we didn't react, and y'all didn't react. And
If you've just got here and you don't know what's going on, once again, we aren't interested in recaps or explaining it. We are here with Bethany BEAL from Girl Defined and her husband, Dave. Dave Defined.
thanks for having us on the show.
Thanks for having us over.
Thanks for having us on your home for an entire weekend.
Yeah, so we flew down to Texas yesterday. This is our.
I will say, just because Sam brought it up, where she's like, if you don't know what's going on, we're not interested in explaining it. I wish you would, though. It seems like they're going to give a little bit of context, but in part 1, it did not feel like, here's what's happening. Get ready for this episode. Here you go. It just felt like I said this in part 1, it feels like we got dropped in the middle of an already happening conversation. And so I was just kind of confused about what was going on. But hopefully we're going to get some context. I mean, obviously I knew, like, Sam and Tanner are in Texas. They're visiting Bethany and Dave, and they're having conversations about faith. Totally get that. But in terms of like what the goal is, if they had any topics that they really wanted to cover, like stuff where it just would have felt a little bit more structured, would have made it easier to follow, because I was just kind of listening, being like, what's our angle here? Like, what's happening? What is the goal of this conversation? Or is there a goal? If there's not, that's totally fine too. But just, I don't know, because we're not there and we don't know what conversations they've had up until that point. For the audience, it's nice to have just a little bit of guidance for what to expect.
First time doing anything like this. We've never traveled like this for
Work.
work.
You guys.
Yeah, this has been such a job, tedious job.
We've been filming and working so hard.
Look, you'll be doing this till your feet are bloody. Come on, we're getting the tape.
They just kept us attached to these little mics, like, okay, wake up, put your mic on, here we go.
Pushing you out of back.
Yeah, film. I mean, the fact that y'all are here is really random and really crazy, because we don't really, like, Dave and I don't like film stuff and do stuff. And then the fact that like y'all like just like got the tickets. We should do this.
In a very
here.
in a very
Like in the
non-refundable way.
office where Joe's like, yeah, come to Florida anytime, and Mike's like, I booked the ticket. Shall we just start throwing questions at you and see where this takes us?
Let's go.
I think the first question everyone probably has is just like either individually or.
I almost wonder if this was filmed before they filmed the video that went up as part 1. To me, that would make sense, because they're like, wow, like, it's so crazy that we're here. Yep, we just bought the tickets, and now we're here and we're filming. And how do you want this to go? Do you want us to just start throwing questions at you, or what? It seems like maybe this was filmed prior to what we already watched, but who knows?
A couple. Just how's the deconstruction going, or how's the new dynamic of life or marriage or whatever going? Catch us up. How's it been feeling?
Since the big internet moments.
Nah,
Oh yeah.
I want you to go first.
Really? But it's your
100%.
deconstruction.
Is it? Or is
Yeah.
it our deconstruction? Go.
Dun, dun, dun.
We'll let the audience decide.
You decide.
New deconstruction
Tonight, 7 p.m.
You go first.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
see.
all right. How it's going? Well, after we made our video, where
I gotta be honest, I don't love that joke from Dave. I don't love that joke from Dave, purely because deconstruction is such a deeply personal thing. And like, while I don't agree with a lot of Bethany's views, she made it very clear that she's not interested in exploring that title, like the title of deconstruction. It does seem like Bethany is open to hearing about new ideas, and she wants to see what Dave's doing and know how she can support him in that. And then obviously they had the conversation in part 1 where Bethany was just talking about exploring like different ideas and hearing from different people, and how the people in her life were like, don't meet with Sam and Tanner, don't do it. But then this very wise person who is her counselor was like, well, yeah, like go for it. Like, you know, go ahead and meet with them if that's what you want to do. But I don't like kind of like pushing that deconstruction title on someone else. Like, let Bethany figure it out for herself. Obviously, I have my opinion on different viewpoints that she shared, and I'm like, here's how I feel, and here's why I think that what you said is wrong, or here's my pushback. But I'm just saying what I believe on it. You know, it's not like, Bethany, here's what you need to do instead. It's, here's an opposing viewpoint that I'm giving you. And I know it may seem a little bit overreactive to like have this deep of an opinion on a joke that Dave made about, well, is it my deconstruction or is it our deconstruction? But I just feel like Bethany would be the kind of person who was like, let me have my questions, let me explore things, like let me do what I'm doing. Don't put that label on me. And I feel like if Dave makes that joke multiple times, which I don't know if he has, I don't know what he's doing, I don't know what the conversations they're having behind the scenes, but I could very easily see a world where Dave makes that joke multiple times to Bethany, and Bethany is like, you're not respecting me and my viewpoint. Stop it. Like, I could just see that. But again, that's a world in my imagination. Who knows what's happening in reality?
I admitted where I was at with the deconstruction, namely my doubts about faith, my crisis of faith, blah, 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 blah. Thousands of people have been through similar things. Our relationship took it was, I want to say destabilized, but it was kind of in this chaotic mode where we were having a lot of honest conversations, more honest than we've been, more honest than I've been. And so there was a difficulty to that, which I would say fell mostly on Bethany. I would say it's been, in those early weeks, it was more difficult for Bethany. But there was also excitement about sort of putting that out. And so we had a lot of, it was very mixed. We would have difficult conversations where we were expressing to each other how we felt. And we would have exciting conversations, or even listening to some of the reactions and kind of seeing like what was happening.
Yeah.
So, and then what happened next?
So like
Something
the video
happened, because I'm trying to remember the timeline.
Yeah.
The last time we saw you was just your like reaction to everything related to the Paul and Morgan. And you guys seem like you're in such a beautiful, I mean, you still do, but you're in like such a beautiful spot. You had just kind of connected more deeply in this new way.
Yes.
Has it just been like an upward spiral since then?
Upward spiral. Okay, if the spiral's doing this, then yes, it's kind of
It's not
kind of
linear.
like that. Yeah, it's definitely more like waves, and it kind of goes up and up and up. So I would say it's trending upward.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to skip the beginning, because whatever's happened in the last month or so has been absolutely phenomenal. I don't exactly know what it is. I would describe it as just magic, because I don't really want to know what it is. But I love it. And what it is like our hearts are opening to each other like they never have before, and we're just experiencing love in a way that we never have before. And that is, in a lot of ways, the beginning of the answer to my deep longing, which has been to get out of my own way and be able to have a relationship. And
that makes sense to me, because for the past however many years, according to Dave, he hasn't been honest with Bethany. There's parts of himself in terms of his true feelings about religion and doubts that he was experiencing that he's kept hidden from her. And so it would make sense to me that now you're able to feel this really just like innate and beautiful closeness with her because you're actually being honest. I have kind of a sad thought, and I don't want it to come off as if I'm blaming Dave or trying to put him down, but it's like, imagine if you had just been honest with her earlier. Like, imagine if you had told her truly how you felt earlier, and you guys could have had that closeness and that like that beautiful bond that you're experiencing now for however much extra time, because you had chosen to be truthful in how you were feeling. And of course, it's his own faith journey. Like, it's his own timing and how he feels comfortable, and when he feels comfortable sharing things, that determines when they should be shared, because it is his personal journey. But there is something about the dishonesty that bothers me a little bit, and only because he said that he was feeling some of it before they got married, but he didn't want to tell Bethany because he wanted to be the kind of person that she wanted to be with. But you know what? At the end of the day, it seems like this is working out for them. At the end of the day, it seems like Bethany is not holding it against him that he waited to tell her, and they're just exploring this new facet of life together. And so if Bethany doesn't have a problem with it, I probably shouldn't harp too much on it either.
Not always be behind like a glass a wall. You know, I could be with the most amazing person in the world, which Bethany is amazing, and not be able to get past my own ego or my own fear. It's really fear. It's fear of being known and fear of, and just as we've been opening up to each other, and I've been, we've both been opening our hearts. It's just like, oh, maybe this is love. Maybe this is what it feels like. And it's been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that all relates with the whole deconstruction thing. Would it have happened anyway? I do not know. Do I want to know? I don't know.
I think we can all just say the proof is in the pudding. Look at your matchy today.
So matchy, culty matchy.
2020. I remember when we like didn't really think through the video that we posted, the reaction video. It was just I don't know. The whole thing wasn't planned. It wasn't planned to do the video with Paul and Morgan, like really us two. It wasn't really planned for us to do like him to like share about his deconstruction. It all just kind of like happened.
Yeah.
So we were heading to a trip with his family in California, and like literally we like published the video and like got on an airplane.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and then like left.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of weird because publishing that video, it's like a lot of it became like real, like with his story. And so it was just that whole week felt kind of like, I think, more difficult because we weren't at home, like in our like comfort zone. We were like in a new place, and now we have all these people who are like texting us and commenting and all these reaction videos, and it just felt like, what is happening in the world? Like, what is happening to everything? Just felt like a massive deal, and I'm in like some strange Airbnb house, like sleeping. So,
and I'm like, chaos is the only way things move forward.
We had one drive where we were out late, and the kids were sleeping in the back, and I just was like crying, and I'm like, my life sucks,
Yeah.
because it was just
my
hard.
life sucks.
My life sucks because it was just like so hard. But I had, like talked to another woman who like her husband went through deconstruction and she didn't, and she was like describing what it kind of was like for us, where for him it was like this really exciting, freeing time, and for her it's like this super scary, like intense time. And so it's like you're going like as a married couple down this path, and one of you is like, whoa, this is almost like so amazing, I'm on a high, and the other one's like, what is happening to my life?
Yeah.
So getting like back from California was actually really helpful. I just felt like everything, I didn't feel like my whole life was like falling apart. It was like, oh, like no, we still have like our life here, like we still have our family, we still have our marriage, like we're not, it just like grounded our life, and that was super helpful. And so I think getting back from California, and since then, it just seems like we've progressively like grown so much closer to one another in like really mind-blowing ways.
We became cats. We were dogs with no boundaries, and we became better differentiated cats.
We've been talking to him about cats.
It's been full cat dog discourse here.
I think it actually is true. Like I think there was a de-enmeshing that happened, and the more we de-enmesh and stand on our own 2 feet and come out each other in a life from a place of solidness internally, rather than in a state of dependence on the other person and their validation, it seems like love gets deeper and hearts are easier to open because we're not just relying on the other person, like, open my heart, please, open my heart right now. You know, we're actually taking ownership.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've been blown away by, is actually Bethany taking ownership over her own life and deciding how and when and to open her heart and take agency over her own. It's just, that's been so beautiful. It's extremely attractive to me, like that, you know, solid based, integrity based living.
Yeah, which is not easy because, I mean,
I think I have mixed feelings on what Dave just said. If he's going to go deeper into it and they're going to talk a little bit more about Bethany, like owning her heart, okay, great. Like, let's hear what that looks like. Is that maybe her kind of saying, like, well, maybe I don't believe everything that I've been told growing up. Maybe there are some things that I want to explore. And if so, that's great. But like, this is about Dave. This is about Dave coming clean about his feelings and the doubts that he was having. I don't know if it's because we're coming off the heels of the Carl Lentz video that I just did, and I'm like on guard against men, because a lot of that was like him talking about his wife's reaction to what happened when what happened was Carl choosing to have an affair. And so now with Dave, it's like we're talking about your deconstruction and he's talking about Bethany's reaction to it. And so I think just in that very, very loose parallel, I'm like, don't make it about her. This is about you. And I don't think that it needs to be. Like, I want to hear Dave's viewpoint and how he is feeling about things, as opposed to like, well, I thought the way that Bethany reacted was really cool. Okay, great. Like, maybe we'll get to that eventually, but I want to hear about your experience and like what you're feeling and what you're learning. It kind of feels like a savior thing in a way, where he's like, now that I've opened the door for us to talk about deconstruction, Bethany has better boundaries and she's been able to take ownership of her heart. And that's really impressed me, if that makes sense.
I imagine for you, it's like a very real grief, realizing that someone you love doesn't have the same beliefs as you anymore. You have to like mourn the life that you sort of imagined through that lens. And I'm guessing that like comes in waves.
Yeah. I mean, I have, so a couple of like older mentors that I have that would be like, you know, very much on like the Christian spectrum of things, but like a lot of what they've shared with me has been stuff that like we've both been like, yeah, like, super agree with. And that's the way to like live. So some people have been like, oh my gosh, like just like this is so hard, and like the grieving and all of that. But like two specific older women, they're like a little more tough love, and they're more like whenever I talk with them or meet with them, I feel extremely encouraged and like very positive. Like the one mentor I meet with on a regular basis, she's like, you know, she was like, well, you've been through a lot with Girl Defined, and a lot of stuff has been said about you on the internet, so you're real tough. Like, God's been preparing you. Like, anyone could handle like being in a different, like a marriage where you have like a different faith. Like, you can do it. Like, she's been more like just as from a Christian perspective, being like, God's like totally prepared you for this and equipped you for this. Like, you're so perfect for this. Like, you know, she's just not like worried at all. So I often leave from being with her and just feel really like positive and, you know, like joyful and like, yeah, like I am equipped for this. Like, I can do this. Like, and then a couple more things they've said. Like she specifically said to, you know, like squeeze every drop of joy out of every day. So like the reality is we really don't know if we have like tonight or tomorrow, you know, like not in like a morbid sense, but it's like, that is the reality. And like a lot of us talk about that, but like, do we actually live that way, you know? And I think most people, wherever they stand on faith, want to live that way. And so she's just like, when I would have like a hard moment or something and we weren't meeting, but I would text her, she just always had more like tough love, like, yeah, well, you can't control things and you don't know what's going to happen. So just like basically enjoy the joy out of today as much as possible. And so that transition and like really waking up every day and really just like choosing Dave and even like choosing our kids and choosing our relationship and choosing the life we have, it's been like transformational. I'm gonna cry. Just because it's really sweet. And like, I know a lot of people like they don't really understand how it could be like so special and so like how much love I have for you. And like I guess it's just some people, you know, like, oh, like what's going to happen to them? Are they going to stay together? Or what's going to, you know, like how could she be with someone who doesn't have the same faith? Like how can they even have a relationship? And it's just so hard to describe to people like how much I love him and how much like it's not just like a choice, like where you're forcing it, you know, it's like.
Okay, I think that it is so sweet that Bethany is willing to be so open and vulnerable and just like honest with her feelings and just saying like I love him so much, and I'm glad that I have this older woman here encouraging me and letting me know that everything's going to be okay. I think that again it's like super brave of her to be this honest online on a platform that isn't even hers, like in a collaboration. But this goes back to some of the concerns that I've already expressed, where it's like, is this too fresh? Should this have waited a little bit? Should this conversation have come at a little bit of a later time, like once things aren't so emotionally volatile? And maybe volatile is not even the right word, but just emotionally fresh. This is still something very new for Bethany and very new for Dave as well. And to be honest, like now that Dave's kind of gotten over the hard part of coming clean with his doubts and like telling Bethany he's not sure if he wants to be a Christian anymore, obviously he's going to have some time where he's like facing hard truths and where he's working through things and like trying to figure things out, and that's going to take time and intention, and that's not going to be super easy, figuring out like what you really truly believe to be correct, and if you believe in God or if you don't believe in God or whatever. That's going to be like his own personal thing that he has to kind of work through on his own terms. But it's like I think now he has the freedom to explore that, and so it's going to be a more positive road for him. Now it's like, okay, that was like the part that was holding me back, was like not being honest with Bethany. And now that I've been honest with Bethany, and now that the whole world knows, I have all the freedom in the world to explore my beliefs. Whereas with Bethany, I'm sure that she feels Dave is like way more open with her now because he's not hiding this from her, and their relationship can grow and they can be honest and have that connection and have like a really beautiful, intimate relationship in a way that they didn't when he wasn't being fully honest with her. But at the same time, Bethany is coming to terms with the very real possibility that Dave will no longer be a Christian. And some of the things that she envisioned for her life will not happen. And that's hard. Like that's a loss. That is something that I have a ton of empathy for. And I think some people, when I first talked about this, were just a little bit confused of like, well, like, why is it that big of a deal? It's Dave's beliefs. Why is that such a big deal if he believes differently? And I guess it's just something that maybe would be a little bit difficult to understand if you're not super religious yourself. But like when I put myself in Bethany's shoes, it's like, okay, Bethany married somebody thinking that they were more or less on the same page. Maybe some of their beliefs were a little bit different, or they weren't as, like Dave maybe wasn't as vocal in some of his beliefs. Maybe he wasn't as voracious as she was, but you know, like for the most part, we're on the same page. We're going to pray together every day. We're going to pray together before our dinner. We're going to raise our kids teaching them about God. We're going to go to church together on the weekends. We're going to incorporate the story of Jesus's birth into our Christmas traditions. Like, you have all of these expectations of what your life is going to look like because you married somebody who has the same faith as you. If you go into a marriage knowing that like you and your spouse have different beliefs, then that, you know, that like you don't have the expectation that one day they're going to wake up and be like, actually, I think your beliefs are right. Let's engage in all of your religious traditions together. Because you went into the marriage knowing like, I have my beliefs, you have your beliefs, but we still love each other and we want to be together, so that's fine. With Bethany, she went into the marriage having certain expectations, and she's been in the marriage for years now and started raising their kids with certain expectations of what her life is going to look like. And now she no longer has those things. And it's not just, oh, this is going to make Christmas a little bit different, or this is going to make Easter a little bit different. It's that this will impact how she lives her life every day. Because for right now, Dave is still willing to do the devotionals with their kids, and he's willing to say, well, the Bible tells us that God loves you, even if he doesn't want to tell his kids, I believe that God loves you. But how long is he going to be willing to do that for? Really, like, really, truly, how long is he going to want to have to engage in that if he doesn't believe that it's true? If he doesn't believe that the Bible is true, if he doesn't believe in God, how long is he going to be willing to be like, yeah, like, I don't believe in this thing. And honestly, like, I feel like Christianity impacted me in a negative way, but I'm going to still do devotionals for my kids. I don't know, maybe he'll do it until they're 18, but I would imagine talking about something as if it's true, or like getting creative in the way that you speak about it, like day after day, at some point isn't going to be what you want to do. At some point it's going to be like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore, because it feels like I'm not allowed to be my authentic self because I'm still talking about this thing that I don't believe in, but I'm teaching my kids that they should believe it. So anyway, lots of thoughts, lots of mixed emotions here. Bottom line being, should this conversation have waited? Although quite a few of you did say in comments that you felt it was really valuable for Bethany to be sharing how she's feeling as Dave's deconstruction is happening. It's like, I think that she's very brave for being vulnerable and sharing it in this way, and I appreciate seeing it happen in real time. And I get that too. Like, I think there's definitely value in that from an audience perspective. So I definitely get like where that comment comes from. But for me, I'm not thinking about it as an audience member. I think it is cool to see how this process is happening and seeing her opinions evolve on just everything over the past few months. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool to see how things are changing. But I'm really more so thinking about it in terms of like Bethany, like what Bethany is experiencing. Would it have been better for her emotionally to just wait a little bit to do this?
It's just so in this bra strap. I'm gonna lose my bra. It's just so beautiful. Like, it really has been. Like, I felt like a different person, and like my heart has been so open, and I've just had more joy and more like love in my heart towards him and just towards like life in general than I think I've like ever experienced. And it's just like, it's so hard to describe, and it doesn't mean there aren't ups and downs, but I definitely wouldn't rewind and go back to a different place in our relationship where we did share the same faith. It's like, even if we never share the same faith again, like the potential that we have in our relationship is just so beautiful. And like, I wouldn't, I just wouldn't trade it. So I never, like, it's not what I imagined and it's not what I thought, but I mean, the reality is there are a lot of people that share a lot of things in common that don't have like such a deep love for each other. And so, it's like having such a deep love and such a deep connection. It's just like, oh, it's like just so amazing. And I think a lot of people don't actually ever get to experience that. And so the fact that I get to experience that with Dave, and some of these hard things have pushed us to that. And we both want to become more open. We both want to love freely and choose to give in that way. It's created this, and it's just been really special. So hopefully that's all my tears.
It's almost like we're so scared of having unknowns in relationships, but then when you actually are forced to kind of confront the unknown, that forces you to be present in every moment.
Sure.
So you actually are enjoying greater intimacy, and because you're meeting each other fresh in every moment, rather than through this like concept of who they are or the roles that you're playing.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Well, it's like so many of the questions have been like surrounding the kids, like, well, what about like you don't share the same faith with the kids, or so much about like the future. And it's like so much fear about the future of what could happen that it's like you can't even be like it's like, oh, I just have no life anymore. Like, I'm just like, my life is gone. okay, I just need to live in a perpetual state of fear.
Yeah, just like
you know?
endlessly theorize what could happen in the
Yeah.
future. How's that helpful? Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, if the day doesn't, like, his faith never changes, I stay the same, whatever. Like, but we have what we've shared recently. It's like, I mean, truly, what more could I ask for, you know?
It's almost like the dark night of the soul followed by a morning that you couldn't imagine, that I couldn't imagine. I really think that's kind of how life works. You know, you got to go through, you know, in order to get strong, you have to break down the muscles, you know, in order to build them back stronger. And just like, I think with relationships, it's the sort of thing, like, you know, the breaking down is often that moment of honesty that is like, wow, I'm really disappointed right now because I was hoping you'd be this way, or I was hoping you'd respond to me this way or validate me or whatever. And then it turns into, I don't know, whatever happens. It's like transmutation or something. Whatever happens from that moment into deeper intimacy. It's like that I don't know what that is. It just seems to work again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think of, like, I don't know, like so many relationships where it's just like you're missing out on like every day because you're just so nitpicky about stupid stuff, you know? And it's just like, I don't know, like, okay, say we like share the same faith, but like every day I'm like taking you for granted, or you're taking me for granted, or we're just like, you know, stressed about other things. That's like, we're missing the life we have anyway, you know? I mean, for me, obviously, like as a Christian, like I haven't like deconstructed in the sense of like, I don't hold my faith anymore. Like definitely certain ideas. And I am super excited and curious, and Dave sends me things and I listen to them, or we read stuff together. And that's been really awesome. And I feel like I've grown a lot. But it's like, of course, like my hope is that someday we like land on the same page in some sense. Like that'd be amazing. Like, I think, but it's also like, I don't know. It's just amazing that you can be super, like, I can be super happy and fulfilled and just so satisfied in a relationship, even if that never is the reality. So I don't know. It's just like this complicated, like.
Yeah. But how beautiful to, even if you're not sharing the exact same perspective, the commitment to be by each other, to, you know, view the world together. And even though it may be different, you're like sharing that experience. And yeah, who knows, like where that leads. And as long as you're like committed to exploring that together and like learning together and being honest and authentic, like what else is there? Like wherever you are, whatever background, isn't that it?
Yeah. I mean, that's something
Yeah.
we've been working a lot on. Like that's one of the, like the commitment plus the choosing.
Yeah. This was within the last month, this has been one of the kind of biggest moments for me of realizing how to reconcile long-term commitment with choosing, because it's like a dialectic. If you commit and you say, I'm going to be with you for the rest of my life, or till death do us part, that sort of thing, which is what we did. How can I then, on a day-to-day basis, say I choose to stay? So it's like it becomes very easily a prison. It's like I'm a slave of that promise that I made when it's a bad day, you know? Maybe on a good day I'm like, yeah, you know, love that commitment. And then it's like, how do I have any agency left? How am I
past me, make a decision?
Yeah, 100%. And so that I've had to really work through that. And there's like a little doorway where you could do both. And that's what I found. And the more I start to talk about long-term commitment and with Bethany, the more she starts to talk about choosing on a day-to-day basis. So in a sense, Esther Perel talks about how if you take the we person and the I person, one of the people saying, you know, well, what do you want? Where's the I? And the other person is saying, well, where's the we? Where is the togetherness and all this? If you swap roles, often what will happen is the other person will begin to You know, if you're a we person and you start to speak in the I terms, the other person may start to speak in the we terms. And that's what I've started to find, is that the more I speak in terms of long-term commitment, the more she talks about the choosing now. And the more I was speaking in terms of choosing now, she was thinking about, well, what about the long-term commitment? So it's like it's a really interesting dynamic. Yeah. But my big question was, can I grow and be committed? Or do I have to think of life as more open? Like, you need to have your options open so that, you know, so that you can grow. And growing is the number one thing. And I got to the point of, like, can I actually continue to make long-term commitment and trust that I will not stop growing?
I'm really sorry, but I'm so confused about what is being said right now. Like, I understand the individual words that Dave is saying. I understand each sentence as he's saying it, but I'm very confused as to what he's trying to paint, like the cohesive idea that he is trying to express and why. And I don't know if it's like a me problem or if it's the way that Dave's trying to communicate something. I don't know. I guess the core of what he's getting to is about commitment and I don't know, being in tune with your partner, because if he looks at the day-to-day, she's looking at long-term, and if he's looking at long-term, she's focusing on the day-to-day. And so maybe it's important to acknowledge that and to like understand, yeah, we're saying we've made the long-term commitment, the till death do us part commitment, but let's talk about what that looks like every day, and let's talk about what I'm going to do to show that I am choosing you and I'm choosing our life together and our marriage every single day, but also what I need to feel like I'm being given my space to grow and to explore my beliefs. Maybe that's what he's getting at. I don't know.
And that this is actually a means, or the way. This is the way that I can never stop growing in this relationship. And that's what I believe. And that's a leap of faith. That's a leap of faith. I am looking towards the future and saying, this is what I choose. And I've told Bethany this. Mm-hmm. And then on a regular basis, there are a bunch of choices I can make and a bunch of choices she can make, because a lot of people who get married, they don't choose each other on a regular basis. They chose each other back then, and now they just have to stay married. Mm-hmm. And it's hell, because the choice on a regular basis is not there. So I want both. Yeah. I want Bethany to be secure that I'm not going anywhere. And I want me to have the agency to be able to choose her every day. So that.
Okay. I guess I get where he's going, where he wants Bethany to know that he's not going anywhere, but he wants the agency to choose whether or not he's going to commit to her every day. I don't know. Maybe it's too hot for me to film this video. It's like 100 degrees outside with 30% humidity. So maybe my brain just isn't firing on all cylinders, but I'm all ears. Let's keep it going.
That's like magic, to be able to figure that out.
It's a weird one with marriage, because you've committed to be together forever, but technically you are free to leave any day.
Oh yeah.
So you do get to choose each other.
But I can't leave without breaking a promise. So that's the one trade-off.
And we know Dave's
one thing about Dave, he's an integrity man.
Aspiring. But
integrity defined over here this weekend.
That's the one trade-off. I could leave, but I'd be breaking a promise. No mention of like how it would make Bethany feel, the impact that it would have on their kids. Yeah, sure. The issue is that you would be breaking a promise. Let's just talk about it pedantically instead of thinking about the real life impact that choice would have on the people that are in your real life that you claim to care about and love. And I know that Dave's not saying that he's going to leave. And like, he's not saying the only reason he's staying is because he doesn't want to break a promise. But it's like, why is that the point that you're making? It's like, well, yeah, technically I could. I'm free to leave any day, but I would be breaking a promise. Okay. And like, that matters more to you than how it would impact your wife and your kids. And I'm not saying that somebody should stay in a marriage just to avoid hurting somebody's feelings, but it's like, if you're talking about leaving a marriage, like breaking up your family, I think there are deeper things to look at other than just breaking a promise.
That changed my mind. That challenged me. It really challenged me. Like, yes, I can leave, but I can't leave and keep a promise. So either I keep a promise or I leave. I can't have both. So ultimately, in no case do I have complete freedom. It's impossible.
This is getting we were going to touch on some really philosophical points here.
It's impossible. Yeah.
Love and freedom.
Yeah.
And all
No,
that.
if I think, oh, to be free, I need to be able to leave. Well, that's to say, if I leave, I'm not free to keep my promise anymore. It's done. And I think that's life. That's why when I do something, it's like it becomes reality, and I can't go back and undo that. I can never unsay the things that I've said to Bethany. I don't have that freedom. I don't have that freedom to unsay things. So it's so interesting to think in terms, because I love freedom. I love the idea of freedom. It's like, freedom is what I want. I want freedom, internal freedom mostly. But you constantly, when I want internal freedom, I'm like, okay, how do I get it? Okay, what are the external things that I need to change in order to be free? Okay, do I need to say no to this, not have this commitment, have this, and yeah, realizing freedom is more complicated than that. Yeah. And what am I free for? Yeah, what am I free for? Like I'm obviously, if I leave Bethany, I'm not free to love her in the way that I would in context of commitment. There's like in
an insane hypothetical where you guys weren't working, the most loving, like leaving could be an act of love, if you know what I'm saying.
Conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, like I do believe that. So it would, but right now the way you want to love her is, I think, because I think ultimately love is like wanting what's best for each other, and you choose what's best for each other.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you became not what's best for each other, it could be an act of greater, more real love rather than conceptual love. To leave.
I think it's, I wouldn't necessarily rate.
Sam, thank you for trying to ground this conversation, because let's kind of like tether us back to earth here.
The love, like I think you could totally, be free, little bird. You must grow without me. I think that could be you could do that with altruism and all this, but again, it does come at the cost of something else, and it always does. That's just how life works. Mm-hmm. So I'm not necessarily making a greater or less than value judgment about which would be better. Right. I'm saying that this is what I choose.
Because you can only do that for the moment that you're currently in. So to extrapolate into like a future scenario, that's like not real, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is thinking about vows. Like we reread our vows the other day, and thinking about what's in the vows. Like we're not just promising to stay together. We're promising a type of quality that we're going to bring to the relationship. And again, in many marriages, it's like that's just ignored.
Yeah.
It's like all you have to do is stay together, and you're together for 50 years, and you've died on the inside.
We didn't get our certificate.
And you get your 50, and you're like, "Well, what a marriage! Let's celebrate that." No, they die.
Yeah, I'm like, you sacrificed love.
You sacrifice, 100%. And in that case, I think it'd be better for people to end the relationship, rather than stay in a living hell for 50 years. And both are not ideal. But it's like, if you have to pick one, torturing your spouse for 50 years and staying together is not something to celebrate. I listened to this one book that was talking about variety of experience, breadth of experience versus depth of experience. And this guy had a lot of breadth of experience. He traveled all over the place. He slept with a lot of different people. He had a lot of different experiences. And now later in life, in his 30s or whatever, he's traded the breadth of experience for, things that he probably wouldn't have thought before. This is just what I want, marriage, like living in a specific location, committing to live in, a city, and not move around all the time. And he's saying that there's this depth of experience that actually is impossible to experience when breadth is the goal. I just don't want to be tied down. Once you get tied down, there is, for better or worse, something that cannot be experienced when the focus is on breadth.
I mean, I think that was a big,
Yeah.
that moment that you talked about, kind of like that understanding of like commitment and choosing. I feel like that was kind of the, like a turning point where our relationship got so much deeper.
Yeah.
Like that was really it. I think I understood like for the first time, which just seems like so obvious, but like the daily choosing and like how amazing that is, you know? And I think I just always thought so much in terms of commitment, which for me, like as a Christian, I have like a, you know, my own perspective of marriage and, you know, divorce and commitment and love. And so I think I still come from that perspective, but like better understanding the beauty in choosing each other every single day. And just that's like what makes the relationship come alive so much. It's not just like the one commitment, which is what a lot of people do. And then they just like focus on their kids or whatever. And then they like hate each other, you know, and it's like neither of us want that. And so it's been really cool to see both of us. Like we're both committed to growing. We're both committed to being challenged. And it's for me securing to know, which oh no. We had this super sweet moment because like for me, I didn't want to like, we have different perspectives on things. But, like I don't think there's a lot of benefit of like nagging or being like, you need to do these things. And so it's for me, of course, like he's kind of bringing these things up and it's like, what? This is kind of like, you know, scary, whatever. And we had this super sweet moment, which in some ways was like even sweeter than our wedding day because I feel like we know ourselves and like know each other so much more. We're just like randomly on his own. He just like basically did this like recommitment of our marriage vows and just like said all these super sweet things and just expressing his commitment. But then really talking about how not only is he committed to me for life, but how he's committed to like choosing me every day. And it was just like one of those moments that's like ingrained in your mind and you're like, it was just so special. And we were in like like parked in front of a restaurant and we were about to eat lunch and it was so random. We were like about to go eat chicken and but it was just so special. And it was something that like I'd never asked him to do, you know, like I didn't ask him to do that. I wasn't pressuring him to do that. He just like worked it out and came up with this idea of like you can choose commitment and make that choice every single day and it can be like really beautiful.
One of my big thoughts in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like kind of what makes some of the best marriages is not just like taking love for granted. Because romantic love is something that just happens, you know, like when you have feelings for somebody or you're attracted to somebody, you can't really control that. It's just like, oh, like we have a spark and I have these feelings for you. But marital love is so different. Like once you are married to somebody, you don't just like have a good marriage out of nowhere. You have to choose every single day to love your spouse and how you're going to love your spouse and how you're going to show them that love and how you're going to like cultivate your relationship. And so I think that it's awesome that they're having these conversations and that they had that really sweet moment before they went and ate chicken.
Was what did Bethany deserve in this relationship? Because I thought a lot about what I want in the relationship, but does she deserve to have security? To actually be able to think about our relationship and not worry about me booking at some point. And it's like, do I deserve to be able to leave at any time? I was like, well, maybe not, whatever. That's just a thought. That's a thought. Okay. But what do I actually want for her? And I imagined like, I want this woman to have this security. I want her to have this. And not only do I want her to have this, I can actually give this to her. And I have the freedom to give this to her. So it subverted the whole idea of freedom for me. Like I'm actually free to give her my full commitment till death do us part. And what I really struggled with before that moment was, can I actually do this and hold on to my integrity? Go figure. And that I came to the point where, yes, I can actually do this. And it's a leap of faith.
There's like so much that's heaped upon us, just any human being coming out of any society, any culture. There's so many things that you just do out of obligation because you're growing up and this is just the way that it is. And in any tradition, I think just in individuating, in growing up, there comes a point where we have to make the conscious choice for ourselves of what we are deciding. Even if it's stuff that was handed to us, we get to like reevaluate and say, do I actually want this? And I think it's really important to make that conscious effort of this is what I am choosing. Now having all the information available, knowing that I have the options and the freedom, what is actually going to be the best? And that's for relationships, that's for choosing our morality, anything. It's like, and beautiful to see it happening.
Yeah, it starts out kind of assumed, right? Yeah. Oh, we're going to do this and we're going to get married and stuff. The reason why it's more meaningful 5 years in is because we know what it means more than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is that you assume, you assume your morality from wherever you're brought up. And yeah, that coming to figure out what I am committed to myself is very powerful. And typically, I think, sets the course for the rest of somebody's life. There are often those pivotal moments, and then they do change, but probably less than before and after that moment.
I mean, we always grow in our relationship a lot when things kind of get chaotic and stuff. So I'm like, can we not have any chaos for a minute? I'm still growing. Like, just give me a minute.
I just do things. Yeah. I think in terms of like, if I'm feeling stagnant, I'm like, what can we do to shake things up here? Okay, I have this bit of honesty I haven't had. I'll go ahead and share that, and then it reforms into something stronger.
Make scrupulosity work for you.
Got OCD.
How are you two doing in terms of, do you have to avoid specific conversations, or have you sort of figured out a system for how to like navigate, because before you mentioned how there were certain topics you would avoid, and it sounds like now you're both able to sort of bring each of your truths to the table and have it be allowed. But on a daily basis, are there things that work for you in terms of not overly triggering each other, or just kind of curious?
I don't want to bring unnecessary suffering into Bethany's life. So she's able to express things, and I can just like turn the dials a little bit, the adjustments. Okay, I'll try not to say that. I'll try not to do that. And that's just like my way of, of respecting her, is that too vague?
Well, I mean, I guess in any relationship, you don't have to say every single thing that pops into your head. It's going to be like kind of a roller coaster.
Yes.
So I think there's a way, like any relationship, you just have to have like some common sense,
Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Change my life.
That's kind of it. So I think in that way, we're like learning, I think like, being close and in Christian terms, like being one doesn't mean you have to share every single thing. Like that might like destroy some like intimacy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like you don't have to be everything to each other, so that's been super helpful, just like knowing that more. But also, I mean, I feel like we have more honesty and more ability to share truthfully how we feel and what we think. I mean, there's no, like when it comes to like faith stuff, we'll talk about like anything. Like it's not a like sore subject at all, like we're both curious and, what each other are learning. And, it's always fascinating. I'm super fascinated with what he's learning. And
I'm super fascinated with her Christian faith, cause like, I've been with her, but I feel like I'm almost like an observer at this point. I'm really interested in not only hers, but other friends that I know. I really want to know, like, what does this mean to you? Cause I know what it did or didn't mean to me, but I really want to know how this works out in your own life, apart from just the sort of, metaphysical beliefs, God exists, whatever. It's like, how does this actually physically in reality in your day-to-day life work? And seeing that in Bethany and asking her about that. Like, does this come from Christianity? Does this come from your faith? Or does this just come from like, would you be this way anyway? Is Christianity helping to construct this amazing character you seem to be having? Or would you be like this anyway? It's like, I want to know. And I don't know the answer. And I don't.
Because there is no Bethany without Christianity. So like, would you be like this anyway? Is like a it can't be asked.
And yet I ask it.
Yes, continue to doggedly ask it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm curious. Sue me. Yeah, it's yeah, I wonder that a lot. Like, hey, they're decent people, unbelievers. How'd they work that one out? You know?
Yeah. Thinking
Okay. Huh. Interesting. I wonder if that's more of a joke or if that's like a genuine thing where Dave is struggling to understand somebody living with morality yet not having religious beliefs. Like somebody living without religion or without a desire to have a relationship with a divine being, whatever that may be. Like you're seeing somebody who, or two people who just are not religious, and you think that they're good people. He said decent. I'll say good. You think that they're good people who have ethical standards, and you're like, well, how does that happen? I mean, I guess if you grew up in an environment where the general consensus is like people without God are heathens living just these awful lives full of sin and full of like destruction and lust and all of these negative attributes, and so we need God, and people who have God and people who are Christian are really the ones who are morally upstanding. I guess that might be something that you're curious about. However, it does just seem a little bit odd to me that at this point in time Dave would be still having a little bit of confusion about people who are not religious seeming to be good people. You know, I mean, everybody has their own life experiences, but Dave is not in an isolated community where he has no exposure to people outside of his own religion. I mean, yes, Dave grew up religious, and he and Bethany met at church when he was in high school, and now being married to Bethany over the past few years, like, she is in a very religious space, and it's like organized religious space, not just like a high spirituality spot. So like he's had a lot of exposure to religious beliefs and things like that, but he also lives in the year 2024. Like he's an adult, he's in his late 20s, early 30s, I'm not sure. And he has access to the internet, and he's had doubts for a long time, and so he's been exploring different things. And even before he told Bethany the depth of his doubts, they were still exploring different facets of Christianity and switching to a Lutheran church. And so I think at this point in time, it would make sense to me that Dave would understand that you can be a good person even if you're not religious, or even if you don't believe in God. He should have exposure to enough people in the world for that not to be a completely foreign concept to him, unless you're just choosing to stick to those beliefs that maybe you grew up hearing.
Our faith and our conversations around stuff like that, I think because we're both really curious and less, for me especially, afraid of ideas that are different. I think for me, I've been afraid of like, oh, like, no, you can't read about that or learn that, because then you'll just like lose everything, you know? And it's like, oh no, I'm like, wow, am I really that like fragile, you know? Like, oh, I can think and be thoughtful and read stuff and listen to stuff. And it's okay to be challenged, because if something's challenging you and you're like, wait, that might not be true, like, well, that's probably a good thing, you know? And so getting rid of the fear and stepping in.
I like that she asked that question of, am I really that fragile? Because if you truly believe in the beliefs that you're espousing, like if you think this is the truth, this is the life that I want to live, and this is the path that I'm going to follow, people asking questions or like reading differing opinions shouldn't scare you, because you have faith in the strength of your beliefs of, well, no, like this is true. And so you can ask me questions, I can read other things, and I can, you know, be exposed to different ideas, but I'm still going to know at the end of the day, like I have my truth that I believe in. And if being exposed to different ideas makes me reevaluate some of the things that I believe, then maybe those things aren't true. Maybe those things shouldn't be part of my belief system. Maybe I should explore different things further. But I think anybody who has like a strong faith in God, or like whatever religion they're in, like you should be open to hearing questions or open to learning about different beliefs and that you shouldn't be threatened. You shouldn't be like, I don't want to hear about other things because that might make me doubt my own beliefs. Like that might make my own beliefs fall, because if they're really that fragile, then are they true? Like, is that really truth?
These conversations more, and sometimes he sends me stuff and I'm like, I don't know what these people are talking about. Send me the basic one version,
TLDR.
Yeah. But it's actually been really, really interesting. And, I'm listening to books that you probably listened to like 3 years ago, or, audiobooks or whatever, but it's really helpful. And some stuff I'm like, how have I never really thought about that? Like, how have I just never really dug into some of this and just kind of always had one perspective? And he brings stuff up and I'm like, that's actually a really good question. And I don't have to be afraid of it, because it's like, I believe the truth is out there. And so it's like, I don't have to be afraid of, finding the truth, because I think there's like one truth in a lot of these areas. And so it's just very freeing to not live in fear and to not be afraid. And I think in our relationship that helps a lot, because it's like, we can just be curious and it's not a threat. When it comes to like this stuff on marriage, these ideas, particularly like with that, he sent me like little clips on like YouTube from like Esther Perel talking specifically about that stuff, which has been super helpful. I mean, it's like stuff with marriage. There have been people like we've told you all about, even though she's Mormon, which is really random, but the ideas have been very helpful and like very freeing. Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife. And so it's, for me, even like, though there's still like a religious aspect of it, it's just really, really been helpful. So there's a course called The Art of Desire. And I feel like that one in particularly has been, I think the best word is like empowering. I don't know. Like it's just been really awesome. Like I've just found so much more freedom and so much more connected to who I am, like as an individual, in ways that have kind of been lost in Christianity. But I think it's very much like you can be a Christian and be very hopefully like connected to yourself. And so that's been like super transformational for like us and our marriage, because it's nice to have a wife like that.
Like a woman who knows and is capable of choosing and desiring for herself, not just for being an object of desire for somebody else. And the cultural narratives around sexuality have largely been, in the United States, and definitely in religious contexts, women are there to serve men and their sexuality. Women are almost like asexual, desireless. They're just sort of objects of like beauty and desire for men. And deconstructing all of that is, and putting, awakening to the sense of agency and the sense of power around one's own sexuality is like insane. It seems to be like changing everything.
What's the name of the podcast that you sent me where it's like the debates, the two conversations?
Oh, they're Bart Ehrman and Peter Williams. Or are you talking about?
It's like the two different like they always have like there's a moderator. And...
So there's a guy, Justin Brierley, who has he's a Christian, and he's been talking to atheists and Christians for years and years, and he has two perspectives typically come on his show. I think it's called Unbelievable. And so he's had Bart Ehrman on, plenty of times, and he's had different biblical scholars like Peter J. Williams and Richard Bauckham and others, and they'll, share differing perspectives about, the plausibility of the resurrection accounts, the Gospels as eyewitness testimony versus more of a oral tradition. How much have the New Testament been changed by scribes, well-meaning or otherwise? And so you just get differing perspectives. Bart Ehrman, as you know, Bart Ehrman is not a believer, used to be, and I respect him a lot, has a lot of interesting things to say. And so he presents, I think, a really great perspective on the side of, I would say, skepticism towards the claims of Christianity. So that show's kind of good. And as a Christian, it's a great show for me to send Bethany, because the host is Christian, and it's a safe place to.
Well, I think it's helpful to like they bring on like two really like experts or like whoever they are, like and so it's really helpful to like kind of have the debate over one question or one topic, kind of going back and forth and being like, oh, that's what people think, or that's what I think there's there is this idea around deconstruction that I think I have for sure. Like, oh, if you want to, like, if you deconstruct, it's just because, like, you just want to do whatever you want to do and you're not really thinking about things. And I think there are some people like that. Like, I'm just done with Christianity.
I'm a little like that.
And that's your right, Dave.
It's my right. It's my birthright to do whatever that.
I've always hated that response of like, well, you just want to do whatever you want to do and you want to fulfill all your earthly desires, and that's why you're thinking about leaving the church, or that's why you're engaging in deconstruction. And it's like, okay, maybe the person does just want to do whatever they want to do, but you have to think about it like, is what they want to do like morally corrupt? Are they choosing to leave the church so they can live a life of adultery, robbery? Are they going to go out and commit a bunch of crimes? No. Chances are they're not. Chances are they are going to leave the church and live a pretty ordinary life. And the thing to remember is it's probably not that they wanted to leave the church to live a debaucherous lifestyle. It's probably that they were experiencing something that was not okay, that did not feel good to them. Whether or not it was that they were going through church hurt, that being involved in a high control religion was causing them more harm than good, whether it be that they had doubts and whenever they brought up those doubts, they were met with being shut down or being told not to ask questions, or when they had questions, they weren't getting satisfactory answers. Any of those scenarios could cause somebody to leave the church, and it's not because, oh, well, you just want to do whatever you want to do. But anyway, I'm glad that Bethany's kind of like calling out that thought process in her own head and saying like, oh, well, no, maybe that's not the case. Like, maybe I need to reevaluate how I perceive people who are engaging in deconstruction, which makes sense because that is what her husband is doing.
Yeah.
But seeing like how much, like, he's not just like being, like, he's very thoughtful about all of this, and he's very like studying and reading a ton, and so I respect that a lot. And
Meeting with pastors, I'm like, bring me all the best pastors. I've met with quite a few people at this point. I love it.
I think a lot of our audience relate to that.
Love it. It's so cool. You know, before it was like a different perspective. It's like, oh, I wouldn't really want to talk to someone like that. It's like, because they might know something I don't. And now it's kind of like, bring me the perspectives.
Yeah, you are hungry.
Let's sit down. Yeah.
Well, and like, it's interesting because, like, from the Christian perspective, at least, like, people that I've talked to, there's almost like, well, there is a sense of like grieving or mourning or whatever, the life you thought you were going to have or whatever. But there's also, it's been strange for me, people almost like grieving like my life is like this, like it's the end, you know, or like even as a Christian, them like grieving like, oh, Dave is done. Like there's just, this is it, you know. But I'm like, as a Christian, if you really believe that the Bible is true, if you really believe that Jesus is who he says he is, like, wouldn't he have the power to bring someone back to himself if that's the truth? And so for me, it's like, I don't have to worry about this stuff. You know, I do believe it's true. And as I study and stuff, it's like, well, if Jesus is who he says he is, like, I don't have to be like convincing him. It's like, it would be like Jesus who brought him back to him. Like me meeting with she's like, basically just like a mentor at this point, but she's older. And, you know, she's the one that like helps me with a lot of those perspectives, because when I talk with other very kind Christian people who are just like, oh, you know, like, we're just grieving with you constantly, and like this, you know, it's just, I'm like, that, thank you for your, you know, sorrows. But like, really, I don't know. I just think like, if you really believe, like your Christian faith is what it is, like, then God is big enough. And so for me, it's like, that may be like, well, nice, that brings you comfort, but it's like, it does, you know, like it does bring me hope. And also knowing like the truth, I don't have to be afraid of to look for the truth, because if I really believe that like this is the truth, then it will prove in the end. And if not, well, then like I better be looking, you know. So I just think that we don't have to be afraid, but also like for Christians particularly, like, how big is the God you're trusting, you know? Or is it just, oh, he's trustworthy as long as, you know, like everything, but as soon as things go different, like actually he's really small, you know. It's like, I don't understand that. Behind the scenes though, like people have asked a lot about like what realistically, like what does life look like having being kind of like you being in this phase of deconstruction, me not. And I mean, the reality is like we still go to church together as a family. And at this point, liturgies, guys. Like, you know, we view that as something that's healthy for our family and community and all of that. And, you know, I know that's not the case for a lot of couples who are deconstructing. They go, you know, one keeps going, one doesn't, but we've continued to go as a family. And at this point, that's been like, nothing has changed with that. You know, there's just, it's not awkward like with our kids. Like there's, you know, Davey has a lot of questions and, or, you know, I share with him what I think.
We joke he's probably going to become a pastor. You know how generations can tend to react and kind of swing towards the grandparents? You know, it's, my dad was a pastor. So you never know, but Davey would be very cool.
But you're like
a very cool man of God.
Like it's cool how you're always so like supportive of his spiritual interests, and you're, you know,
he's
like,
a child.
Yeah. You know, just a lot. He has a lot of questions about things. So, and I mean, you know a lot, so you will share like the best of what you know with him. And I think, I mean, at the end of the day, we've talked with y'all kind of like behind the scenes that, I mean, for our kids, I think the best thing we can do for them is to like have like be like an open, honest, like real authentic person. I'm not hiding stuff, not just being like a shiny, happy person or anything like that, or just like trying to look a certain way or look apart. And then for us having like a real relationship, like a real love for.
Ooh, we got a little callback to the documentary Shiny Happy People, which Bethany and Kristen were not interviewed in, but some of their clips were used in that documentary. So it's kind of funny that she said that. But thinking about Dave and Bethany going to church together, I guess for now that makes sense because Dave is still just kind of fleshing things out. And so for now, like she said, like that works for us and we see that as a healthy thing for us. And so good. Like that makes sense that they're still doing that together. And I think it's great that they are still doing that together for now. And if Dave winds up kind of landing in a spot where his beliefs are different than what they were before, but he does still believe in God and they continue to go to church together and like he just kind of comes to a new understanding of what Christianity means to him, then that's great. But I do hope that Dave feels like he has the space to truly explore what he believes and he doesn't feel like, okay, I'm still agreeing to go to church, but it's impacting how far I feel like I can step outside of the expectation of what Bethany wants from me, if that makes sense. I mean, for me, as a Christian, like, I wouldn't want anybody to leave the Christian faith. Like, that would make me very sad if Dave ended up being like, I don't believe in God, I don't think he's real, I don't want anything to do with this. But I think that he should have the space to explore if that's what he believes. Like, I think that everybody should have the space to be like, no, I can think about what if God's not real. I have the freedom to explore that and come to my own conclusion. And so, if that's where Dave ends up landing, I wonder how that's going to impact their relationship. Like, if Dave ends up landing in a spot where he's like, I don't believe in God and I don't want to go to church, how that's going to impact how Bethany feels about this, like, mixed faith marriage. Because as of now, I mean, Dave hasn't given, from what I can remember, he hasn't given, like, a hard answer as to where he's at, other than just saying, like, I don't find comfort in Christianity, I don't know if this is true, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm exploring a lot of things. So, if he does eventually get to a point like that, that might have quite an impact on how Bethany feels about this whole thing.
One another. I mean, that to me is just like the most securing, like, wonderful home to grow up in, you know? And so obviously I want my Christian faith to be a part of that. I would love for that to be passed down to them. But, you know, I'm not willing to sacrifice that by, you know, forcing them to have like this facade or something they don't really believe in, just like, we have to look this way, you know, this is what my dream has been to be with this family, you know.
You represent us, no pressure.
Yeah, like 0%. So
Do you equally share with your children sort of your beliefs, or do you feel like you're, as a couple, still leaning towards a Christian?
Yes.
and well, we don't have like this agreement, like, I'll be the spiritual teacher. It's like neither of us. It's like, I'm not worried. You can tell him whatever you want. Like, don't talk to our son. It's like, we're both his parents. Like, you know, like he needs his father, and you have a lot of really important ideas and thoughts and questions. And you've taught Davey so many things like that are just extremely helpful for him in his development, and just, you know, his already like it, you know, his like his own understanding of just like how to regulate and just so many different things, which is amazing. But we don't have, it's not like weird like that with us. It's not like at all. It's neither of us is worried about it. We both just kind of share what we think and believe, and it tends to be a lot more, Davey is like a lot more interested in like spiritual things, and him and I spend the majority of time together because I'm home with him full time. So naturally, as his mom, we're having the most conversations, and, you know, he'll just out of nowhere, you know, it's like toddlers, like they're just, you know, you're talking about one thing and all of a sudden ask this extremely deep question. And you're like, oh, let me think about this. And then like, oh, look at that. You know, it's just, it's like so in and out. But we have a lot of, you know, like he loves his little like Bible book, and he loves family devotions in the morning, which is like extremely simple and something that Dave started. And, you know, like I'm not asking him to do that, but he just does it
every morning. Crown on your head, staff in your hand.
From on high, yes. Yes.
Do you feel like the church you go to now is far enough away from sort of the more shame-based approach to Christianity that maybe has like historically been a part of your lives?
I have stuff to say about this, so I want you to say something. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, I think for sure compared to other groups and things we've been a part of, I think for sure. I mean, at least in my own experience, you know, I just think there's a larger variety of people coming from all sorts of different backgrounds that go to this church that make it a more unique experience. Yeah.
Well, where we go now is a lot more historic. So it's less of the, you know, North American evangelicalism that's developed in the last 200 or so years. So in that sense, I think it's more grounded in a more substantiated intellectual tradition. I am wrestling with whether or not it intrinsically carries the shame in the heart of the doctrines of at least Protestant, not even Protestant, but Augustinian Christianity, which is the tradition that Lutheranism comes from, is a lot of Augustinian ideas. And Augustine developed ideas around original sin. He developed ideas around a lot of ideas around sexuality, interestingly enough, that I think have come down to today as well. And about the fall in the Garden of Eden and the whole like meaning about that. And so I'm really wrestling with, okay, is this actually Christianity? Was it derailed pretty quickly? You know, was after Jesus, did Paul derail Christianity? Did Augustine derail Christianity? Is it possible to know what an original Christianity, is it even a good question to ask, or are we just left with tradition? And is that tradition inseparable from a construction of weakness being necessary? In other words, you know, the priest needs the sinner in order to be a priest. It's like it self-perpetuates. So in that sense, a lot of the trappings of fundamentalism, where you look this way, you don't watch these movies, you don't use this language, all of that is much less emphasized, which is great. And I don't think that's core to Christianity to live in these sorts of ways. I think that's not the real thing. So what I'm trying to ask is this a real thing? Because obviously, if I'm rejecting something, I don't want to reject a fake, you know, knockoff that's 200 years old. I want to reject the real thing. And so then the question is, once you get all the way back to Jesus, first of all, can we know? What can we know about who this person actually really was and the claims that he made?
Mm-hmm.
And two, the nice things that we'd want to believe, that a lot of us would like to believe, oh, good moral teacher, can we actually do that? Or are we bastardizing a historical person that in sort of like shifting him to be something different that fits a lot more of the sort of modern liberal sensibility? You know, because I don't want to do that either if that's not historically accurate either. You know, I don't want to claim Jesus and just sort of fit him into my nice little progressive box of, you know, ethical teacher. If that's,
see, these are interesting questions. Like this is where stuff gets like fascinating to me, and I'm like, oh, I would love to hear more of this conversation.
Yeah, if that's not historically accurate. So that's why I'm searching right now. And so that's a lot of words to say. There's just so many layers to getting back to like how we get the faith we get. And so I don't, that's a big way of saying, I don't know.
I really appreciate you answering that and going into that. Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is like, I don't want the like that fundamentalist mindset or legalistic mindset to be a part of our kids. And I think, in like you've said, in so many ways, that's not really present in the church in ways it has been in past groups and stuff. And so for me, that's just I guess a really great step in the right direction.
Huge, yes.
It's like a pixelated image becoming, you know, slowly, you're like adding pixels that are more clear, kind of trying to fill out more of a picture.
Or the reverse, where I used to think it was so clear and like, why doesn't everyone just see this? Like, it's obvious that the more research it's showing, it's just so obvious.
Yeah.
To now it's like, oh, it's a bit more.
There's
a lot more pixels than I knew about.
That's good. Yeah.
But also I do
filling
like
out that picture.
I am getting a clearer picture because, again, just trying to get in as much data as possible.
Yeah.
Without trying to like shoehorn it into a structure of belief that already exists.
Have you ever thought of this as kind of a weird thing to talk about, I guess, but that our exploration is largely a privilege. Like to actually have access to information is like a function of it, possibly just Western privilege in a lot of ways. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's like to have access to like pick and choose, and you know, it's like secular age privilege. It's like pluralistic privilege.
Freedom heretofore unknown.
Yes,
it is definitely a huge amount of privilege to even be able to like be wrestling with any of this.
Yeah, I feel lucky. Like I can just about any book, any information, podcast, it's like for extremely low cost. I don't have to go to university to learn a lot of this stuff. It's like, how do we have access to this?
Don't even have to drive to a library.
Which is already an innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a wonderful privilege to not only have the resources to explore history and hear different people's perspectives and learn from other people's expertises and like their experiences, but then to have the mental capacity and the time to engage in that exploration as well is definitely a privilege.
I mean, in so many ways, like it is true. Like for me, being a mom full time, it's when I am constantly listening to stuff, reading stuff, my mind is so occupied with that I find myself like, getting frustrated with my kids or whatever. And it's like, because I only have so much capacity, you know, so I do have to be like careful about how much intake I put in at certain times to make sure that like, well, I have these two humans that I love so much. And they're so little, like I'm creating the existence that they have. And so what is the most important thing for me in this moment? And in so many ways, it's taking it a lot slower, like reading stuff, listening to stuff, because it takes away from the very things I'm like supposed to be present in. So it's helpful to like, I guess, just have grace and like patience and know like it's a process. And okay, well, if I die tomorrow, I'm like, well, you know, I guess I'll know the truth then. So like, oh well, but you know, it's he also
fair.
He also digs
or
in.
not.
He also like, you know, just sometimes has work where he can like listen to things and you know, I don't know, you're just like more dedicated with your time, I guess.
You
whatever.
have more like maybe time or resources to be able to research?
Okay.
Probably.
But like even like a drive, you know, if you're driving to your workout in the car, you could listen to something where I'm listening to
the garbage song.
And Davey's favorite. Pussycat, where have you been? It's like
Yeah.
You know, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's like they're happy and they're singing, or we're listening to animal stories for kids or whatever, or tiny theologians do one of Davey's favorites. And it's like, that's just the season of life I'm in. And I don't have to be like, oh, well, like you have a 30-minute drive where you can knock out a podcast order. It's like, it isn't, you know, like I just don't stress about that stuff as much. And knowing that there's like times where I'll have more time to do that. I mean, we were just talking yesterday, like it'd be so cool if like the two of us could go away for like the weekend, leave our kids with like family, and just like bring a shorter book that we could dig into together and just read it over that weekend. So almost like a power learning session together. And so just coming up with creative ways to get, you know, I don't know, more learning in.
Like maybe to Utah or somewhere like that.
Yeah, on the way, on the trip.
Yeah, just a quick weekend away.
I am glad that you talked about that, because I do think it's worth acknowledging that typically men do enjoy that privilege more of being able to, because they go to their jobs and you can listen to a podcast, you get to direct work. When you're a mother, especially if you're raised in a culture where you're encouraged to have 8 or 10 kids, or, you know, it's like where is the time where you're like expecting these women to be listening to bottom and debates, or, you know, it's just
all right, David, we're going to listen about the great schism of 1580. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I only have 2 kids and I feel like it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, I find like the more intentional I am with my time, the more like I'm happier anyway. Like when I'm scrolling on social media and just like wasting my time on stupid stuff, it's like I am not satisfied. Like if, you know, was a brainless waste of time in the moment, and it kind of felt good to like relax, but it's like it didn't further me in any way. And so I found like the more intentional I am with my time, the better, but that doesn't take away from the reality that I choose. Like that's the life we choose. And honestly, I like it. Like I like being the one that's, you know, home with the kids, and it, you know, works well for our dynamic and our relationship for you to be the one that like predominantly provides and stuff. But it's just like getting more creative, but it is different, you know, and sometimes it can feel frustrating. Like you don't understand, you know, like you don't, like I can't just do this, you know, but it's like, but I also choose this. So it's like, it's complicated. But it's just like my capacity to run at the same pace as him is just like impossible.
Well, yeah, Sam, 100% right. That is a privilege that I enjoy. It is to be able to go through some, you know, content on a faster rate. 100%. And Bethany is, she's an angel. What can I say? She is an angel. And if you want to, you know, rejigger some things in order to go through more content, we can totally have that conversation.
If you must take that trip to Utah.
If you would like, yeah. But I mean, I am so, Bethany helps me so much because I can be clueless about what she goes through just as a woman on a regular basis. And she's kind and compassionate enough to, and courageous enough to share her heart and how she's feeling about what she's dealing with, the kids and all that. And that's incredibly helpful. And, you know, to the degree that my ego is involved, I don't always like to hear it at first, but it's 100% what I need to hear. It's that kind of self-confrontation of like, I want to know everything that she's doing, and every area that she feels like she has less flexibility and would like more. I want to know that and see what we can do to help bring more satisfaction to her.
I mean, I think it's really cool. We have a really great balance. And Dave, I mean, I know other women, their husbands are just, it's the way they function. And he just kind of like, he provides and she does like everything in the home. And that would be really hard for me. So like Dave does so much that makes my life a lot easier. And again, we choose this and this is what we want. And I honestly find so much satisfaction in it. But you know, like he's one of those dads where it's like the moment he gets back from work, the kids are so excited and they're like jumping on his head. He's not like, I need 10 minutes to like unwind or poop or whatever. That would be like hours for the poop. But
oh my God.
It's like, it's just, he's very present and like, okay, I'm working, or I'm, you know, it's like he works from home a lot of times. So we normally like, we eat breakfast together every day. And then he normally comes down and we all hang out and eat lunch together. And then we're all together for dinner. So we just have a lot of time together, and our kids are around you a lot because you mostly work from home. And I get like when Audrey's napping, or, you know, I, you know, can take Davey and do something. It's like, cause you're here, you can, you know, I don't know. as a woman, I have a lot of support from you as a man, like husband and wife. And
Nice.
I think that's what makes being a mom so joyful, because I'm not doing it on single moms. I just have like so much, like, I don't know how they do it because it's hard, and I have a very supportive husband.
Well, I just wanted to like to say, down with the patriarchy.
That's
that
Barbie
out.
Dave. We
Get
know.
that out of here.
Which on that heavy note, we have like 5
Yeah,
minutes and
do
we
you
should
need
wrap
to
up.
leave?
Oh yeah.
Also, can I just, I'm gonna, so I don't forget, can we talk about the Gnostic Gospels later?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Speaking of the patriarchy.
Honestly, I feel like this has been a really good, like, self-contained episode.
Yeah.
And we definitely have like a ton more we can talk about later, but this has been
Yeah, this has been really
you
good.
guys are the best. I'm
Okay.
so happy you have us up here and we're like willing to do all of this, because this has just been the best trip. And
I'm celebrating Bethany. Bethany's doing the most stretching. This is because she's, you know, I think,
Just the longest.
What's up, Dave?
yeah, she's
She comes from
incredibly open heart, and incredibly like open to y'all, open to me. It's like, this doesn't just happen. You have to have like some character.
Yeah, and as I said in
Okay.
our last video, like the level of upheaval and work that must have gone into being able to create that space is like, it's impossible to explain to someone who hasn't done it how big of a deal it is.
I mean, I say the exact same thing back. This is like my first time as being like online, having this type of conversation. And it's been so far like such an amazing experience. And the way I think about online and the way I have even started to communicate, like, since we've connected, has changed and really opened my eyes to my own, like, in the past, like, I don't really want to be that way, you know, just the humanity of like who we all are. So it's, I mean,
Self-love.
We
got to wrap this up so we can keep our integrity and our commitments.
we are not free if we break up. Promise not to do that.
we gotta get the kids.
We gotta go, but see you soon. Later in this video or a different video.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's not our job to predict the future. Just be here in the now.
Bye.
Everyone.
All right, it says 5-ish weeks later. Oh, and it said text. Okay, so it's from Dave BEAL, and it says, "Hey y'all, as you already know, Bethany and I are withdrawing more from social media in general to focus on our life together. We're not going to be active here moving forward. Best of luck with all the content. We'll be logging off this and other text threads as we work together on the life we're building." And this is from, Wednesday, 7:48 a.m. And then it says, "Dave BEAL left the conversation." I don't know what to make of that. I have a lot of thoughts, but they're largely speculative, and so I don't necessarily think it would be super fruitful to speak on, like, well, maybe this is what happened, or maybe this is why he said it. I have no idea, but that's definitely an interesting text, and I find it especially interesting that Dave left the conversation when he could have just as easily sent the message, and then Sam or Tanner could have responded, and then that could have been the end of it. Like, nobody would have needed to continue texting in that group chat. Like, you could have just not texted in it any further. So it's interesting to me that he actually left. Okay. Well, that's a fascinating end to this conversation, because it seemed like everything went really well while they were there, and the conversation was deep but affable and friendly, and seemed like Dave really enjoyed his time with Sam and Tanner, and Bethany had positive things to say about it as well. So I'm not sure if Sam or Tanner are going to comment on that, or if they're going to give any additional context in a future video, but I definitely will be on the lookout for it, because it would be interesting to hear their thoughts on it. I think it's definitely a choice to end this video with that text without adding any additional information, or without being like, shortly after we filmed this and part 1 went up, Dave did send this text to our group chat, and we're going to respect his wishes to withdraw from social media, but we really enjoyed our time with him, and we thought it was an overall positive experience, whatever it may be. Like, just something kind of like what Sam said in the comment that she left on my channel in her response, where she didn't say anything about Dave sending this text or anything like that, but like she gave her opinion on overall how the collaboration went. And so I guess it would have just been nice to hear kind of their closing thoughts separately from the overall conversation, but we can't always get what we want. So that's what we've got. That's what we're left with. But regardless of that, I would love to hear any thoughts that you had on the collab, the conversation, my opinions. Feel free to share whatever it is, whatever you want to let me know. You can do it in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or in the Q&A section if you are listening to the podcast on Spotify. And while you're doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to the channel, or leaving the podcast a rating and a review, that would be incredible. If you've done any of those things already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out with you, and talk about whatever. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.